I'm going to invite you to start. Just pop into the chat. Who are you and what brings you here to this webinar today? Well, I'll tell you who I am. I'm Joshua Chard. I'm a second and third grade looping teacher at East End Community School in Portland, Maine. It is a high needs, highly diverse elementary school on Munjoy Hill in Portland. I'm also the 2024 Teacher of the Year, and I am the Arts Integration Fellow for the Maine Department of Education. One of the things that's interesting about me being in this position is that I am a generalist. I'm a general classroom teacher. While I am a working artist, I am not, my day job is not teaching arts in the school. I'm not a music teacher. I'm not an art teacher. I am a general education teacher, and that is the lens that I'm bringing to these presentations. And I'm so happy that everybody's here. And I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we're going to get started. So today's presentation is boosting content knowledge through readers' theater and creating engaging leveled texts using AI. And today we will there are lots of AI platforms, and I've started playing around with several different platforms, but mostly right now I am using ChatGPT as my platform for developing texts and developing materials for my classroom. And I have found it to be interesting, sometimes highly effective, and sometimes less highly effective. And I'll talk a little bit about that as I show you some images on my slideshow as we go through. So our learning goals for today. We are going to, when we finish today, you will understand the benefits of readers' theater in classrooms at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. You'll learn some practical strategies to implement readers' theater in your classroom. We're going to explore some examples of readers' theater at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. I'm going to show you some scripts that I developed this week, and tell you a little bit about the editing process I had to go through, because sometimes ChatGPT comes up with some pretty hilarious things. And then we're going to begin to explore using ChatGPT as a tool for creating differentiated materials. I'm going to invite people. You're welcome to keep your cameras on if you'd like. And if you'd like to turn your cameras off, you absolutely can do that too. I know that sometimes when I'm in an hour-long or a 45-minute presentation, I grow weary of looking at my own face. So I won't be insulted if you decide to turn your cameras off and just listen and watch the slideshow. Let's see. Why are you there? We go. So what is readers' theater? My background actually is theater. I am a professional freelance director. I specialize in directing musical theater. I also do occasionally direct plays, but for the most part, I focus on musical theater. But readers' theater doesn't require a theater background to implement in your classroom. In fact, it's really designed for non-theater folks to be able to bring in that dramatic reading into their classroom. So it's an instructional strategies where students perform a written script by reading it aloud, but they don't have the pressure of having to memorize it. You don't have to have any props. You don't have to have any set. And its emphasis is on reading fluency, reading with expression, and comprehension, which allows students to focus on vocal delivery and interpretation of the texts. Typically, students are assigned roles and use their voices, facial expressions, and gestures to bring characters and narratives to life. And what's really great is that you can develop scripts so that if you have an emerging reader and you want to make sure that their role is a little smaller in the play so that they are able to practice that text and become comfortable with that text, then that is a way to differentiate for that student. And while if you have more proficient readers, you can provide them with more material in the script. So in classrooms, readers' theater is often used to enhance literacy skills, to foster collaboration, and to boost confidence in public speaking. And it's really motivating to reluctant readers because it's a meaningful and real way to ask them to do repeated reading and to practice texts. I'm currently teaching second grade, And a lot of times students are like, I am done with this book. I don't want to read it again. And they're very resistant to the idea of when we're learning how to read, we read things more than once and we practice reading them. But if you're doing a reader's theater script that's eventually going to be presented in front of some kind of an audience, then there is absolutely a real reason for students to engage in that repetition and that working on a text and digging deeply into that text. I don't know what prosody is. I don't know what I meant when I typed that. But it can improve the accuracy rate, and it's a versatile tool sort of suitable for various grade levels and adaptable to different texts from fictional informational.
Yeah. And again, like if I ask him to do a journal page, he's going to work through the journal, but he's going to.
I got
I think that one's probably 6. This one's probably 8. This one's probably.
Not doing the math.
He'll kind of show it to me, and I'll be like, "Well, I'm not going to make him read it the whole thing most of the time, but I'm going to circle a few."
Somebody, let's see. I got it. So why do readers theater? It enhances fluency, comprehension, and public speaking skills. It builds confidence and fosters collaboration. It's a highly collaborative process where students are able to give each other feedback and talk about what they're doing well and what they want to do the next time they go through the script. It engages emerging readers because it provides that, as I said before, that opportunity to practice and really dig into a piece of text and spend an extended period of time working on that text. And it supports diverse learners. In my classroom, about 70% of my students are English language learners. And by having scripts that are customized to their reading level, it provides opportunities for them to really participate fully in a way that they can't always participate with the mentor texts in our reading programs. So you want to begin by selecting the right texts to work with. That's critical for engaging students and meeting their learning needs. And for elementary students, simple scripts with repetitive language work the best, like fairy tales, fables, or short stories with clear, predictable patterns. These reinforce foundational literacy skills such as phonics, sight word recognition, and sequencing, and they also provide a sense of accomplishment for young readers as they successfully engage with material in a collaborative setting. And it's great for building those habits of mind around collaboration and being able to take feedback and give feedback, providing equal airtime, having conversations about, I noticed that maybe you'd like to try this the next time you do the play. And it really provides that opportunity for students to really begin to work collaboratively with one another. If you're developing pieces for middle school students, you want that content to become more challenging and probably a little more tied to your curriculum. You can develop scripts based on historical events, mythology, or science topics to make those cross-curricular connections. For example, a reader's theater script about a pivotal historical moment, such as Paul Revere's Ride or the signing of the Declaration of Independence, allows students to dive deeper into the subject matter while still practicing that fluency and expression. And these texts will help middle school students to analyze characters, themes, and they'll help them foster critical thinking skills. In high school, you can shift to texts that allow for deeper interpretation and discussion. You could do excerpts from plays. You could, if you're studying Romeo and Juliet in class, and I'll show you an example of that later, you can develop a reader's theater script that is accessible to students. Or you can look at a work like The Great Gatsby and scan in a chapter from The Great Gatsby or a scene from The Great Gatsby, and you'll be able to use ChatGPT to develop that into a script in seconds that your students will be able to use to deepen their understanding and their relationship with that text so that they can explore tone, subtext, and other literary elements, encouraging them to think critically about the material and to express their understanding in a way that's different than your typical classroom discussion. And so for those students who might be uncomfortable being asked a question and answering a direct question about it, this allows them to engage with the material in a way that feels comfortable and safe to them. And again, if you have emerging readers, and we know that high school teachers have emerging readers in their classrooms, you can use ChatGPT to develop a script based on complex text that they're studying in class that is adapted to the reading level that they're working at. We can actually ask ChatGPT to develop a script that's at a certain lexile level. And that, again, provides a real and engaging and comfortable way for students to engage with that more complex text, even if they're still emerging as readers. And so I want to point out that every image that's on my slideshow today, I made using ChatGPT. Now, this wasn't the most efficient way to find images, because one of the things that's happening with artificial intelligence at the moment is that it is engaged in deep learning, which is a little creepy to think about. In fact, every time it gets used and you give it feedback, it is learning to do better. So the first image that I developed of the ant and the grasshopper were really menacing and had super scary eyes and looked like they were about to get into a fight to the death. And so I had to then say, no, that's not really what I was looking for. And then I refined my description, and I kept refining it. Then the next time, the ant wasn't an ant at all. It was a yellow jacket. And so artificial intelligence it's still growing and learning. And so you'll find that you may have to go in and do some refining of what you're asking it to do, but eventually you will hopefully get to something that is resembling what you were hoping for and looking for. And so this image, I think, is a pretty child-friendly image. And you, in fact, could then, as you cut and paste what you've developed on ChatGPT, you could actually use illustrations that come from ChatGPT to illustrate the works when you're making handouts for students. I will say that creating art, and I use the word creating, I'll put air quotes around the word creating, does create an ethical dilemma, because ChatGPT is searching millions of images on the web and becoming inspired by the work of other artists and using the work of other artists to create the pieces that it's creating. I read a lot of ethicists' opinions about this. On the one side, there is the theory that artists already are inspired by the work of other artists and study the work of other artists and incorporate that into their work. I can see that ethical conversation, that ethical perspective. I would add to that, however, people, when they're studying to be artists, aren't studying 30 million works of art in 10 seconds. And so I think that there is a fine line between using this for materials in your classroom and using AI-generated images to, say, illustrate materials that you're selling on Teachers Pay Teachers. Now, that is a personal decision for you. There's nothing that says you can't use these illustrations, but it is an ethical question that I have when I think about how are we using images that we generate on AI. So again, we'll say that in elementary school, you can, if you have sight words that you want used in your Reader's Theater script, you just put them right into the description. Put them right into the description, and you will have a script that includes all of those sight words. You can even say in the description how many times you want each of those sight words to appear. In middle school, you can prompt it to make sure that there are certain character traits evident and a part of what are seen in the characters in the scripts that are developed. And in high school, you can really explore tone, subtext, and deeper literary analysis. One of the scenes I'm going to show you is I asked it to take the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet and adapt it into modern language. And so that allows students to explore the classic language, the Shakespeare's actual language, or the language that has developed as it's been edited through time, and to also do those scenes in modern language. I think that another thing that it really encourages expressive reading. I have a lot of students who struggle with, if I put a book in front of them and I ask them to read that book with expression, that doesn't have any meaning to them. It's difficult for them to understand, how do I read this in a way that is interesting and engaging and is with expression. But if I say to them, we're going to put on this play and we're going to perform it for our classmates, or we're going to perform it for another class, or we're going to go perform it for younger students, suddenly there is absolutely a good reason to practice that reading with expression. And as an actor and a performer, I learn that reading with expression includes taking feedback and hearing from people what their reaction is to the way I'm reading it. And so it definitely is great for that. You want to assign your roles based on students' reading levels and interests. And I want to really emphasize, in the past, I put on plays in my class, and about 10% of the time is spent on tackling the language and looking at it through a language-based lens. And 90% of the time is spent preparing and making beautiful props. Now, I am an arts integrationist, an arts integration fellow. And so I love making all of those props and all of those visuals. But if your objectives and your goals are around language and practicing reading fluency and deepening understanding of the texts that students are engaging with in the classrooms, it's nice that Reader's Theater takes all of the attention off of those kind of visuals and puts it all on, how are we reading this? We're going to do this standing in front of a group with scripts in our hands or with music stands in front of us, because this is about reading, not about putting on a play. As much as I love to put on a play, this is not so much about putting on a play. It's about storytelling and learning how to be a storyteller. So let's look at some examples. I sat down the other night and I started popping some prompts into ChatGPT. Now, I will say that I have the paid version of ChatGPT. I just decided last week to start paying for it. You will find, if you're using the free version, it doesn't have all of the functionality, and it will limit the amount that you can generate each day. It will say to you, that's it. You can't do anything again until this time, this evening, and it will freeze you out. But up until recently, that hasn't been a problem for me. I haven't found that it was freezing me out very often. And on the occasions that it did, it was probably a good thing, because it was a message for me to get up out of that rabbit hole and go for a walk, because it becomes a little addicting, because it's pretty fun and pretty amusing to do it. So here is a Reader's Theater version of The Three Little Pigs that it took about 15 seconds to generate. And I did about 4 different drafts until I got the number of characters and tone that I wanted. So if you have a group of students that you're doing a small group, a tier 1 intervention with, and there are 6 students in that group that you're doing the tier 1 intervention with, tell ChatGPT to make sure that your play has 6 characters. And so you've got your ready-made leveled script to work with those students. So this is pretty simple. It's 5 characters: the narrator, pig 1, pig 2, pig 3, and the wolf. Reader's Theater there's always a narrator. That is sort of a hallmark of it. Traditionally, when I made Reader's Theater scripts before, I would take a picture book and I would retype the entire picture book and make it into narrator parts and dialogue. This has taken that piece of the equation out of it and is saving an enormous amount of time. And this is where AI becomes such an important tool for teachers, because we don't have an enormous amount of time, and it creates a high level of efficiency that allows you to devote the your precious time to what is important. So, narrator, once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs who set off to build their own houses. Each pig had a different idea how to make their home. I'll build my house out of straw. It's light and easy to work with. By the way, this is a script generated for 2nd grade. I'll finish quickly and have more time to play. Pig 2, I'll build my house out of sticks. They're stronger than straw, but still quick to use. Pig 3, I'll build my house out of bricks. It will take more time, but it will be strong and safe. The 3 pigs got to work. Pig 1 built a straw house. Pig 2 built a stick house. Pig 3 worked hard on the brick house. And one day, a big bad wolf came to town. I smell pigs and I'm very hungry. I'll go to the first house. The wolf went to Pig 1's straw house. He knocked on the door. Little pig, let me in. Not by the hair on my chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll roll your house down. Takes a big breath. The wolf huffed and puffed, and the straw house blew down. Pig 1 ran to Pig 2's stick house. Help, the wolf blew my house down, etc., etc. You all know the story of the 3 little pigs. And so we go through, and we've got a 2.5-page version of the 3 little pigs. Presumably, you have been studying this story in your class. So the students already have read multiple versions of the 3 little pigs. They may have read the 3 little wolves and the big bad pig. They may have read the true story of the 3 little pigs. And this becomes an opportunity to extend and give them an opportunity to practice interacting with that story in a different way rather than receiving it as a read aloud. Or for our reluctant readers, our emerging readers, having to sitting with students and hearing their peers read it, which is great and really powerful, but we also want our students to have other opportunities to engage with text in a way that is meaningful and helpful to them. All right. So I am going to now go to a middle school example. I want to make sure, can someone just unmute and let me know that I'm successfully toggling back and forth between screens? Or give me a thumbs up if your camera's on. Okay. So a middle school example. I started with one that was a story, a familiar story. I then went in and I asked it to make me a 7th grade script about photosynthesis. Again, it took about 15 seconds. And then I changed it a little because as it is apt to do right now, as it's still learning, it included vocabulary that was well beyond a middle school level. And so I just went in and I cut and pasted exactly what it had written before. And I said, simplify this text, remove the following terms. And so here we have the amazing journey of photosynthesis, featuring a narrator, chlorophyll, sunlight, a water molecule, carbon dioxide, oxygen, and glucose. Today, we're going to witness a fascinating process that occurs in plants every day, photosynthesis. It's the way plants make their own food and produce oxygen that we depend on. Let's meet the key players in this amazing process. Hi there, I'm chlorophyll, and I'm the green pigment in the leaves of plants. I'm the one who absorbs sunlight, which is the first step of photosynthesis. Without me, photosynthesis wouldn't be possible. Then sunlight comes in. Then the narrator provides some more context. Water molecule comes in. So we can start by providing students with these scripts that we produce using ChatGPT, and it allows them to practice material that we're studying in class. And then they suddenly have models where maybe in the future, instead of us generating the scripts, they're able to now use these as models and exemplars for them to start developing their own scripts about concepts that they're learning in the classroom. So it starts with us providing them, as we always do. We provide those models, we provide those exemplars, and then you can work toward students doing it on their own. And so the script continues. Carbon dioxide comes in, chlorophyll comes back in. This one has been developed so that the parts are all really pretty equal. And then they finish by all saying the power of plants, the breath of life. And that's the end of our story about photosynthesis. Remember, even though it's happening all around us, it's still an incredible process that keeps our world alive and green. Again, after you have invested 15 seconds of your life waiting for this script to come up, if you don't like it, tell ChatGPT. ChatGPT is learning. They're estimating that it's going to take another 2 years before it really reaches a fuller potential. I also suspect that when it starts reaching that potential more and more, it's going to cost more and more because they're going to want to find a way to monetize it more than the $20 a month that you're paying right now for a membership. I also will let you know that Google has their own version of AI. I use a graphics design program to design theater posters. It also has AI on it. Lots of different angles are being developed for use of AI in different applications. So then you've got this great script about photosynthesis. And then I want to tell you a little story about this image before I go into the script. So I asked ChatGPT to generate images of the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet. I thought that was a pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand command, given that the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet is pretty iconic. It's pretty all over the place. And it was a beautiful image. The colors were lovely. The color of the sky was beautiful. There was only one problem. In the background, 3 dinosaurs were looking on as this romantic scene unfolded. I don't know where it decided that it needed to add dinosaurs to the scene. I mean, it was pretty awesome. And I kind of want to direct that production of Romeo and Juliet now. I feel like it's the Tyrannosaurus Montagues and the Brontocapulets, maybe. I'm totally intrigued by the concept, but who knows? It also struggles sometimes making pictures of people. There will often be extra hands or extra fingers. So you do have to look at your images and see what it's doing. Again, it's learning. And it's so weird to think about this server-based function learning, but that is exactly what it's doing. It's learning and it's building its libraries and it's seeing what its human users are approving of. And it's saying, okay, I want to do more of that. The next time I get a query that's similar to that, I'm going to make sure that I do something that's similar to that because that made the human happy. And so, but you definitely, it kind of reminds me of when earlier in my career when I was teaching 5th grade and you would look at Wikipedia and you might print a Wikipedia article out for your students to read about a topic you were studying. And if you didn't carefully read it because Wikipedia is crowdsourced, you would discover that somewhere in the middle of the text, there was something either blatantly untrue or maybe incredibly inappropriate. And so just as we have to be careful about what we print for our students from documents that we find on the internet, we can't always count on AI being perfectly accurate. But I should have put the image with the dinosaurs on the slide now that I think about it. I think I will add that image to the slides for the next time I do this presentation. All right. So here's the balcony scene modernized. I asked it to modernize it for a high school class. But if I was doing a class of at-risk students who are struggling readers, I could have asked it to do a modernized version of the balcony scene at Lexile 425. You could, if you use Fountas and Pinnell levels, you could ask it to do it at Fountas and Pinnell level M. There's enough out there for it to mine data-wise to understand what that means. So if you have a leveling system, in Maine, we use map testing, which always gives students Lexile levels. So that's a source that we easily have. But if you're using other leveling systems, then it's pretty likely that you're going to be able to use those leveling systems to cue ChatGPT to develop what you would like it to develop. So here is the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet modernized. It's late at night. Romeo, having just met Juliet at the Capulet party, sneaks into the Capulets' garden. He hides beneath Juliet's balcony, heart full of love, hoping to see her again. There she is, Juliet. Look at her. So beautiful, standing there like the sun rising over the ocean. I could stare at her all night. What am I doing here? I shouldn't be here. What if someone sees me? I love that the famous sign, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo, which kids always assume means she's asking where Romeo is, which is not what she's asking at all. She's asking, why do you have to be named Romeo? Why do you have to have this family name? Why are you a Montague? Oh, Romeo, why does your name have to be Romeo? If you weren't a Montague, we could be together. Why can't you just change your name? She's talking about me. I have to let her know I'm here. Juliet, etc., etc. Like I said, the balcony scene is pretty iconic. This actually is the layout I really like. A lot of times on its scripts, it will do lines in between each of the lines. So I cut and pasted it, did a couple of edits on it, right from ChatGPT into a Google Doc. And so here's a great scene. You could even take different scenes from Romeo and Juliet and have different groups in the class perform Act 1, Scene 1, Act 1, Scene 2, Act 1, Scene 3, using modern language. Compare the modern language to the classic language. And really, again, create, you also could say, do it in the style of a 1970s horror movie and see what comes out from that. The possibilities are pretty endless because the investment of time is pretty small. And in a minute, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. But the investment of time is not huge on this. So let's try it. Does anyone want to unmute? First of all, let me tell you, this is what the screen looks like when I go into ChatGPT, and you'll see there's a running record of things that I've worked on. I also use ChatGPT to edit my work. If I write a description of something, I'll ask it to make it clearer. Still my work, but it'll clean it up for me. I also, if I'm using websites that I want students to use, I can plug in the web address. And here's an example. So I'm on the board of directors at a local theater. And so I can ask it to summarize www.lyricmusictheater.org. I can just put in the web address, hit return, and there's a summary of the website right there. It just went to all of the tabs on Lyric Music Theater's website and wrote up this summary for it. So when I am putting up websites for resources on my DOE webpage, I start by asking ChatGPT to summarize the websites. I used to spend tons of time writing those up. Those don't have to be in my voice. I'm not presenting those as original thought or original writing. I'm just presenting it as, here's some information about that website. Would someone like to unmute and give me an idea for a Reader's Theater script that they'd like to see developed by ChatGPT in real time right in front of them? Anyone have an idea? Anyone want to unmute? All right, well, I have an idea. I had an idea just in case, because I know everybody's tired. So I thought it's always good. You want to make sure that you're using pieces that are in the public domain that are easily publicly available. The truth is that you actually can probably find copyrighted. It can probably mine for and find copyrighted material. Again, we're getting into the ethics of it. Should we be data mining material that is technically copyrighted and shouldn't be up on the internet? You can argue that it's for classroom use, it's not for personal profit, or you could argue that it's intellectual property and we shouldn't be mining it. I'm going to leave that decision to you, but for today's purposes, I'm going to go with publicly available text. So I'm going to say Little Red Hen, readers, theater, script. I'm putting no punctuation, second grade, 5 characters. Let's see how it does with it. And there it is. That took 20 seconds to generate that script. Now, I haven't read it. There may be issues in it. I was sort of skimming as it went by. I didn't see anything problematic. But what a time saver. And then now I could say, all right, but I have some advanced readers in my class. So I actually can go back to my original prompt. But I'm going to say Lexile 750. Why are you not? Get rid of the word grade. Lexile 755 characters. I'm improvising. I don't know what it's going to come up with. Let's see if it comes up with a more complex version of the Little Red Hen. And I already am seeing more complex vocabulary. I see harvest. I see grooming, grind, more imagery, fine, soft flower. So there you go. I now have 2 versions of the Little Red Hen, and it took me 2 minutes. Again, I'm going to move these into a Google Doc, and I'm going to take a look at them to make sure they're meeting the needs. And while this isn't arts related, here's an interesting something that you can try. Let's see. I'm going to do a 6-week reading intervention about consonant, vowel, consonant words. Now, this isn't providing me with all the lessons. This isn't telling me everything to do, but it's giving me a really solid outline that I can start from. When I prepare tonight's presentation, I put in the talking points that I wanted to make sure that I cover tonight. And I asked it to make me an outline for a 45-minute presentation on Reader's Theater and using ChatGPT to generate Reader's Theater scripts. Again, what's happening tonight in this workshop is based on my knowledge base, which is limited and new. And it's based on my words and my ideas. But ChatGPT helped me organize all of those ideas. So instead of spending an hour of preparation time making the outline, I spent 10 minutes typing into the prompt box what I wanted to have happen in this presentation, and it outlined it all for me. And it said, spend 3 minutes on this, and spend about 4 minutes on this, and spend 6 minutes on this. And that saved the time for me to go and really think about and dig more deeply into what I wanted to present tonight. So let's try one more. Let's do give me a high school. Any high school teachers on the call? Someone give me a high school science concept. I'm an elementary school teacher. Any high school ideas? All right, well, I'm going to do, I'll do a second grade science topic then. Reader's theater script about properties of matter for second grade. Again, I'm spitballing. I don't know if this is going to be appropriate or good, but what I do know is I'm not going to have to spend an hour writing it. So let's see what it comes up with. Gassy Gus. I want to play Gassy Gus. And then I could say, let's see what it does if I ask it to make a picture. Image of the properties of matter for second graders. Now, before I hit return, I'm going to tell you that I asked it to make an image of photosynthesis for middle school students last night, and it labeled it all with nonsense words. None of the labels were actual words. And so this is as it's learning, just as our learners learn, as it's learning, it is going to make mistakes. Let's see what it gives us. I'm curious. All right. Let's try make a picture of the properties of matter for second graders in the style of a watercolor painting. Let's see what happens if we try that. Emma, you can do it. I'm also on my school's Wi-Fi, so we'll see if I have the bandwidth to do this. I'm not at home right now. Seems to be struggling with this prompt. It doesn't like this prompt very much. All right, that's okay. We'll see if anything comes up, and I'll check back to it in a little bit to see if anything came up, but it seems like that prompt was not a well-written prompt and it doesn't know what to do with it. And I can see that. Making a picture of the properties of matter. Oh, it seems there was an issue generating the image. So it will also tell you, it's like, yeah, I can't do that. And that's okay. I want to tell you that the image on this slide, that's not what I wanted to do. The image on this slide is what ChatGPT thinks it looks like. So I asked it to make a picture of itself, to make a self-portrait, and this is what it came up with. This is what it thinks it looks like. And I thought it was interesting to see. I know I keep talking about it as if it's sentient, and of course it isn't sentient, but it is learning and it is collecting information, and it's not doing it with a coder at the keyboard. The code is written, and now it's doing the work, which I know is really crazy. So that is sort of an introductory lesson on using ChatGPT to create differentiated instructional materials in your classroom, particularly focusing on readers' theater scripts. And I just wanted to check and see if anyone had any questions.
George, did you do anything with foreign languages?
I have not tried anything with foreign languages. I will tell you where I do use artificial intelligence with other languages, and that is before I put anything I write into a translator app, I put it through ChatGPT, because as we know, English has multiple meaning words, and that it doesn't necessarily, our translator apps are often inaccurate, right? And can even say things that are culturally offensive, right? And so the only way that I've used it in that context is to take things that I've written and change the language so that it's easily translatable, which makes it sound stilted and odd for the parents who are getting it in English. It actually sounds like I don't know how to write. But for the parents, but hopefully it's being more effectively translated. But I have not tried having it develop scripts or develop materials in other languages. I think that it probably can. You're going to want to make sure you're fluent in that language to make sure that what it's developing is grammatically correct, and give that a try. But I have not tried that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you go to the Teacher Leader Fellows page on the Maine Department of Education, there will be links to all of the Teacher Leader Fellows websites, including mine. This webinar, as well as the slideshow, will be within the next week or two, will be up on my website. If you want to hit some of these links, when you open the slideshow on my website, you'll be able to get to some of the links that are on here. And I want to thank everybody very much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time after a busy day of teaching to spend some time with me learning about artificial intelligence and using artificial intelligence to inform your practice, and invite you one more time if there are any other questions. I do want to give a shout out to my friend Zach on the call. Zach is the 2024 New York State Teacher of the Year. Zach was also really passionate about using artificial intelligence. Zach, is there anything you want to throw out onto the floor about your learning? You're doing work around this right now as we speak.
Yeah, I am. The whole future of AI, I think, is really interesting as it evolves into our classrooms. I'm actually in the San Francisco airport right now, leaving a conference with Google to talk about this. And as we grow older, we have to remember that our students are never going to grow up in a world where AI didn't exist. So to have us integrate it into their regular curriculum as often as possible is going to ease that transition to that world for them. Even though it's scary for us, I think we have to give it a shot.
And the bottom line is it's not going anywhere. Like, we can think it's scary and we can have really big concerns about the ethics of it and how are we going to prevent students from using it to cheat and all of those things, but it's not going anywhere. And in fact, it's going to become more prevalent. I think that within the next 2 years, you're going to be impacted by artificial intelligence every single day without even knowing you're being impacted by it. And so
I agree. And I also want to quote Casey Cuny, the California Teacher of the Year, who said that our students are no longer growing up in the age of search, they're growing up in the age of ask. And in doing that, we need to teach our students how to ask quality questioning, especially when we get into the world of AI. And I mean, as we saw, using good prompts is important to generating good responses.
All right. Well, that's what I've got for tonight. My email is right there, joshua.chard@maine.gov. If you have more questions about this or you'd like to get on a call with me individually, one-on-one, I would be happy to do some individual sessions with folks talking about it. I'm a newbie. I wanted to present this month because I think it's really important. I don't claim to be any kind of an expert. I'm kind of like the teacher who finds out they were assigned to a subject area that wasn't their major and they're staying 4 chapters ahead of the class. And I feel like that's where I am right now, but I am 4 chapters ahead of where a lot of people are. And I think that we want to demystify the idea of artificial intelligence. And it's not an entity that's coming to take over the world. It's not going to kick us out of our houses and destroy our buildings and our monuments and take over the planet. We have to decide how we as educators are going to use this, what is a disruptive technology. But let's be honest, I'm in my 33rd year of teaching. Google was a disruptive technology. Calculators at one point were a disruptive technology. Once upon a time, pencils were a disruptive technology. One of the things that we do in education is we face disruptive technologies head on and find out how to integrate those technologies into our practice, because that's how we're going to prepare our students for the world they live in now and hopefully prepare them to be the kinds of thinkers who are ready for the world that is going to be in a decade, because we don't know what it's going to look like in a decade or 20 years from now or 30 years from now. I'm not that old, but there weren't computers in my school. So, and before the print, right? The printing press, books were a disruption to learning. Zach, thank you. Yeah, these are all disruptive technologies. They required teachers to change the way they were doing things, and so we need to embrace it because we're preparing our students for a future world that we can't even imagine right now. So thank you everybody very much. I appreciate you all being here, and I will be back next month with another webinar. So if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to the Teacher Leader Fellows newsletter, it's called Integrate This, and that's the best place to find out. Or subscribe to the Maine Department of Education's news feed. That's the best way to find out what is happening next with all of the education fellows, because I'm on a team with a civics fellow and a financial literacy fellow. So lots of good stuff happening out there. Thank you all very much. Have a great night.